All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Episode 18. All right.
There are games afoot.
Yeah, we have a storm coming.
Mhm.
Yang is preparing for potential subterfuge via
Right.
Lowengrom's
Mhm.
inserting of people to instigate a coup d'etat via the massive prisoner transfer that happened between Kier Heiss and Yang rather recently.
And we're not privy to what exactly are the preparations that he's going to be doing, which means they'll probably work, but who knows to what degree.
Yeah, the big thing is that with Yang at the Iserlon Fortress, as far as the borders against the Empire, they're probably pretty secure.
Yeah.
However, internally, that's where the problems will probably lie the most. And strangely enough, in a lot of ways, because the Empire just thrashed the Alliance, they don't have a border problem either. So their problems are also kind of internal, if any.
Because New Kaiser,
yes.
And it's a 5-year-old.
The kid, Erwin Yosef, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Little kid. They... by picking this kid, though, they slighted the other two lines of the Kaiser's descendants.
They did indeed.
So there's a potential issue coming from those
As
angles.
happens when, thrones are taken and passed on to the next generation and whatnot.
Especially
Not
the
everyone's
youngest
happy.
heir.
Yeah.
Yeah. That in of itself just feels a bit odd because they don't have any issue with the Kaiserin being
with that being a thing.
With that being a thing.
Female heir isn't so much of a problem, but then why this one in particular?
The easiest to manipulate, according to Adrian Rubinsky.
Or at the very least, the most neutral.
That's possible. Yeah. So we've got we've got a little bit of a time skip post last episode. A little bit of time has gone by, so we'll get to maybe see what has adjusted since then. And what was the name of the activist extremist group?
The Earth Cult.
The Earth Cult.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're slowly becoming a bigger and bigger plot.
Just a little bit.
Thing.
Just a little bit.
So we'll have to keep an eye on them. So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion. All right. Reinhard just big-brained and completely outmaneuvered everyone here.
Yep.
And in some ways, I have to assume that this whole thing was entirely with Lichtenlad. Lichtenlad had to be completely involved in this. But the thing is that remember way back when he was like, we're giving this boy too much power.
Right. Yeah.
Now he's like, you can just take the title of Supreme Commander of Imperial Forces.
Yep.
It's an emergency powers kind of situation thing here.
But that whole thing where they offered him one of the 3 positions before, he has all of the positions now.
Yeah.
That's
Reinhardt just got a lot more powerful, but it's not even to the point of where he got more powerful as a political force within the Empire. But he is the most powerful person in the Empire right now.
Yep.
The Kaiser holds power in title alone, primarily at this point.
Right.
Lichtenlad holds, I would say, a level of power in probably politics with regards to Reinhardt, but not in military. So
in some ways, Lichtenlad probably has more power than the Kaiser in a practical way because he, sort of does more.
He decrees and
exactly.
He probably is the one that's the instrument of making this decree happen, so that Reinhardt can end up making this all work.
But even among the other people,
Yeah.
The amount of power consolidated within Reinhard as a single person is ridiculous.
It's insane. So there's no question about whether or not he's going to succeed here. I think the biggest question is actually how he's going to utilize his admirals.
Right.
Other than that, he's won. The main problem with Reinhardt's thing is that they're going to be attacking a walled city equivalent. which isn't a good idea.
Right.
Just in general, that's not a good idea.
But and the main reason that it isn't a good idea is because they have Mercats.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm guessing if they have any sense, right, they're going to basically say, Mercats, this is your thing. This is why we brought you here. So now do your thing and we'll stay out of your way.
Right.
That's obviously not what they're going to do completely, but hopefully they do that at least a little bit.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that could end up being the undoing of Braunschweig and Littenheim is that Mercats could essentially realize that they're fighting a losing battle for no reason. And he could surrender his fleet essentially to Reinhard and be like, all right, to avoid the loss of life, I, Mercats, in sole command of this Imperial fleet here, being dubbed the Rebel Army, surrender totally to you and beg that the dishonor that I have brought upon my name not extend to my daughter. Or my immediate family.
It's the what's that?
Punish me, do not punish anyone else.
Well,
he seems like an honorable guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's one of those basic things where because he is only working with them because of under threat of harm to his family.
Duress.
He's under duress, right? Yeah. That means that he's not necessarily going to stay working with them.
Yep.
Right? And if at any point like he's going to be looking for an out, right? And if at any point he is able to basically whisk his family away and go run to Reinhardt, he's probably going to do that.
Right. I don't think he's going to be able to do that though. I think he basically he separated them from the situation by saying, okay, you're safe for now, but I need to say goodbye to you because I have to go do things that are difficult things.
Right.
And in the case of which he is acting in treason to the Empire, there is a very real possibility that Reinhard
uses them against him.
Yeah, exactly. So in some ways, I have no fear of Braunschweig and Littenheim using them against Mercats.
Weirdly enough, if Reinhardt ended up figuring out a way to kidnap, like if he ended up kidnapping Mercats' family and used them as hostage, that would be an ideal situation because Mercats didn't want to be doing this anyways. Right. And then he could just say, thank you, I was being threatened that, they would be hurt if something happened. Yep.
Completely bloodless civil war. However, the narrator kind of broke that theory a little bit by saying the greatest civil war in Empire history.
So it's not going to go smoothly.
It's not going to go so smoothly.
And I am glad that they established a character on the other side that is one competent, but also is someone that we can kind of have respect for because I feel like in this show they're not going to, or at least so far they haven't done too many love to hate characters. I feel like.
Actually, hold on. I think Adrian Rubinsky is the closest thing.
Adrian Rubinsky is probably the closest thing.
Yeah,
but with most everyone else, if they are someone that we're not supposed to be rooting for, then they're grossly incompetent.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, I want to actually look at the face of So I think they're this is a show that kind of draws a little bit from history.
Okay.
There's a specific
they did
person
with the one showing of the nobles all gathered together.
So I think that they're almost making this guy look like a specific person from history.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me ants out the reveal a little bit to everyone watching a little bit. Don't you see what I'm Google searching, but don't tell anyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Internet's being really slow.
Oh.
That's rather weird. But there's a specific person that I think this situation kind of fits with. In the American Civil War, there was a general who was known as probably one of the genius minds of
that time.
Of that time with regards to military strategy.
Yeah.
And when the nation was split and divided, there was a very serious... for some reason the internet's not working here, so I'm going to have to use my phone or something like that. But there was a guy named Robert E. Lee, for those of you that don't know much about American history. It's okay, I'll kind of give you a little bit of a thing here. He was not completely against the idea of the Confederates or what have you, but there was definitely a worry that this war was something that wasn't going to work out as well, but it was his loyalty to his people, his state, the area that he was in, and that's why things went the way they did. But dang it, is the internet down for the whole area?
I think so.
That's crazy. Okay, well, anyway, I feel like Mercatz is the Robert E. Lee equivalent here.
It does feel very similar to that, yeah. Because in the American Civil War, like
Robert E. Lee wasn't under duress, though.
Well, Robert E. Lee wasn't under duress, but it was one of those things where he was one of the biggest issues that basically made it so that the war was as bloody as it was, right?
Well, he was the most tactically sound leader militarily than the he doesn't look at all like Robert E. Lee. No, Robert E. Lee had that very like typical tufts coming out the side and a massive bushy beard. But yeah, if I remember correctly, he was a genius graduate from West Point, which at that point was like the place. If you were a military strategist, you came from West Point, like specifically. Gotcha. Yes, that's right. So yeah, he had also a good squad of people underneath him as well, which is kind of interesting because we don't see anyone underneath Mercat specifically other than his attaché, his adjutant.
And I really liked that they brought up that it's not just that Reinhard is a tactical genius and everything, but that his admiralty is the cream of the crop, right? Yes. He has made sure to get the best people under him because, as we've seen previously, mess ups from the people under you are still very much possible, even if you're a strategic and tactical genius, and that can throw away a whole that can sway the outcome of an entire battle.
Right. Bittenfeld was the one specifically who started chasing after the panties of the goddess of victory when he should have been, staying underneath the command of Reinhard.
Doing the slow and steady.
Right. Now, they definitely cut the knees out from underneath Braunschweig and his nobles by a decent number, but I don't think that they're in a place of numeral superiority.
Right.
The nobles still have a larger fleet. Just I think so. The way that they're setting this up is that Reinhard is going to be outnumbered, which is actually kind of amazing because if they're setting up not only that Reinhard is going to be outnumbered, probably not as much as he was going to be before, but he's outnumbered by a decent bit. He is going to have to assault a fortress, a base of operations, if you will.
Complicated.
Means that there are multiple ways in that this could go wrong for Reinhardt, and in some ways, this won't be a quick, easy thing unless there is some added element that we have not considered here.
Right. Well, and because of the things that they've been developing and building up on both sides for the Galactic conflict, what with the Alliance, because the Empire stomped the Alliance, right? So how do they recover from that, right? You don't just recover from that. So how do they have conflicts in the future? Well, you make it so the Empire is severely weakened.
They're divided
A civil war will do that, but also if they are weakened substantially because of this civil war, then that can happen further. Given that Merkatz is on the other side, that's a lot more likely to happen because otherwise Reinhard would just stomp them, right?
Yeah.
And then that also goes into the whole Adrian Rubinsky thing in the Earth Cult and the idea of weakening both sides so that he can make his own play.
Yep. And with what is going on the Alliance side of things, they're literally preparing for something like this.
Yep.
Potentially happening. So Yang is making sure that he'll have some preparations in order so they're not completely blindsided by it.
Right.
But that means that not only is it going to happen, but in some ways it's going to succeed. It's going to succeed just enough that Yang will need to respond, or Yang's plan will be needed.
Right, and his plan will probably work, but it's something.
But he's still one person,
right? And one of the things that they've been building up in this show is the idea that in war everybody loses. Right? There's no true victory because there's always a cost.
Yep.
So the more you fight a war, more you lose. Right? Yep. Even if you win.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah. So given that this is continuing, right, it's going to get worse and worse.
Right. Kierheis, Oberstein, and Reinhardt are just proving to be this dynamic trio of perfection,
and it's
so
awesome.
It's so wonderful because there's a couple things going on here that I really appreciate. One, Oberstein kind of represents the idea of, Reinhardt is trying to change the Empire.
Yes,
he literally is the one that wants to, have the dynasty of Golden Bombs
overthrown,
overthrown. Which it's like, it just kind of almost happened right here, actually. But we'll see. Kierheis is very attached to Reinhardt, but also Reinhardt's sister. The second there was any potential issue of Reinhardt's family, his sister, and him really being under threat, Kierheis orchestrated a tactical arrayment of soldiers
that was so
to protect them. So they're like, we're going to send 30 men because we couldn't get the 300. But we'll get this to work out.
Dead of night, it'll be fine.
Nope, the entire estate is filled with soldiers. They're popping out of the bushes, y'all.
Right. Because one of the things that I was
Kierheis is personally down there as well.
Because one of the things that I was kind of wondering is, in a situation like this, would you even want people to be on the front lines, right? Especially if they're civilians, like Reinhardt's sister.
Yeah.
But there was this idea that, that was kind of bait because it caused them to make the move because they were actually there. They might have been able to find out if she had been whisked away somewhere else.
Yes.
But the idea of Reinhardt talking to his sister and being like, everything's fine, while there are explosions and flashes of light going behind him, the idea that just 500 feet away, people are shooting and killing each other, right? And he's like, nope, it's totally fine. And Kierheis is personally overseeing the defense of this mansion.
Right. It does two things. One, you're reminded how much Reinhardt trusts Kierheis to do what needs to be done and to do his job well.
Yeah.
Second, he is establishing a larger amount of trust that the sister has in Kierheis. And Reinhardt is not completely blind, I would say. He probably knows how much Kierheis appreciates him being talked up by his bro, his wingman.
He's essentially being his wingman while a battle's going on. He's like, no, Kierheis, he is so awesome. You know how awesome he is.
He's the absolute alpha. The best dude, the best boy out there. I mean, other than me, of course, because I'm your brother, right? I mean, I'm your younger brother, so I'm not like that cool. But But Kierheis, he's getting it done. No need to worry.
Right.
That ruddy, red-haired kid is...
With his dashing, handsome face and everything.
Bold, piercing, bubbly eyes.
One of the other things that I love about this, though, is that it's kind of ominous foreshadowing, for one, if Kierheis ever totally doesn't die or get removed into some situation or other, of all the people in this show,
well, we talked about this. We're beating a dead horse at this point.
But also the idea that Reinhardt's sister won't necessarily be able to stay safe forever, and given that she has been his main reason for doing what he does up till now, will there come a point where Reinhardt's lust for power overshadows his desire to protect his sister? Because this is something where, now granted, Kierheis is incredibly competent and it worked out just fine, but it worked out just fine this time. Is there a point where he will be willing to risk the safety of his sister a bit more because it's what he needs to do in order to attain power?
Well, in a lot of ways, he already did that here.
Right.
I wanted to bring up this thing of, why were they even here if they knew this was going to happen? Now, I don't think they knew this was going to happen. Reinhardt can't literally see the future. But I think he thought it was a decent possibility. One of the things that I think that Reinhardt has done rather effectively is he has definitely predicted the arrogance of the nobles.
Yes.
One of the things that if they were going to try to assassinate one of the highest ranking officers in the Imperial Navy, is maybe there's too much honor really even in the Empire. Why not send a ship? Now they probably, or not just a ship, but just take a big piece of military hardware and just fire it at the house.
Right.
I guess they're not actually willing to do that yet because there's maybe a whole lot of
It would make the other nobles be like, hold on, I don't know if I'm, if I want to side with you or something like that.
But again, they weren't even willing to go after Reinhard directly because of posturing that needed to be done so that Braunschweig looked powerful to the other nobles, and his you realize Braunschweig and Littenheim had to decide at one point who was number 1 and who was number 2. I think that
it happened in the bedroom.
but I love that, but I'm actually really serious here. I think what it was is that Braunschweig was saying, if I win this battle here, I win the future battles, which is literally what he said. Not what he said, but what his other officers were saying. So I think that's more of a thing where Braunschweig was like, no. There won't be any division amongst our side. And I will be the new Kaiser.
And that's why, the character
Personal
that was introduced.
Ambition. Yes, let's talk about her. Hildegard von Mariendorf.
Hildegard von Mariendorf. Yep. I love her.
I love her
already
so much.
love her.
Yep.
The design is not one that I would have expected from the Empire. It's something that I would have
design,
the character design. I very much thought that she was an Alliance character,
but she was in the Imperial OP.
Well, right, and that's what was so weird. And then I didn't get it, but the thing is that the way that she just talks about everything, she calls it how she sees it, but she also has a good head on her shoulders. The whole thing of I'd take a smaller but highly disciplined, an organized military force that's an actual military force over a bunch of squabbling nobles any day. It's and this is why.
We don't know how much they're outnumbered by, so it might have looked really enticing to join up with Braunschweig and Littenheim. Maybe Reinhardt's outnumbered 4-1. Maybe it's really that bad.
Essentially, yeah. But also the idea of oh, well, they have way more numbers, so we won't be appreciated over there. But if we join Reinhard, and we join Reinhard specifically before all of the stuff happens, before the chips fall where they fall,
we'll get a really good deal out of this. Yeah. Now, I also want to bring up a couple things that I feel like are a little bit, not hypocritical within her, but a couple things that I feel like make her into maybe even more intelligent of a character than what they're trying to let on here.
Okay.
Now, I don't think this is necessarily what the show is intending to do here, but she brought up the idea that Braunschweig and Littenheim are doing this to not only, because feels a bit contradictory here, doing this out of personal ambition, but also to maintain the Golden Bomb dynasty.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Braunschweig is married in to the old Kaiser's family and what have you. They represent kind of the other families that were slighted in that respect.
Sure.
But here's the thing that's rather interesting. By painting them as that faction, that paints Reinhardt's faction as the one that is dismantling and deconstructing the Empire. Right. Which is, hold on a second.
Yeah.
How does everyone guess so correctly that Reinhardt... Yeah, that's what he wants.
Because that is definitely what Reinhardt wants. That's not necessarily what the other people want. It's not what Lichtenlaud wants. It's
exactly.
It's the official current Kaiser is on their side. Now, granted, he's just a kid, right? So how much does that account for? But you would think that that's where actually a lot of the more sort of stubbornly loyal
the loyalists people would fall, right?
And then on the other side, it's all the... Well, of course, the personal ambition, political power.
But she's making the difference about it being whether or not the dynasty of the Empire continues in the old ways or not.
Okay, maybe the reason that she's doing this is because there's all the stubborn loyalists kind of people, right? But then since all the people that are motivated by political power are leaving, that's essentially weeding them out of the current system, whether the current system is actually desiring to change or not.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And then so by siding with them, that's how it'll end up sort of really naturally going. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing is that she's then also saying personal ambition isn't bad though.
Right.
The reason
I have
why
personal ambition.
Right.
Yeah.
But the reason why we're joining up with Reinhardt is entirely personal ambition. Right. It has nothing to do with the actual current regime.
Which makes me wonder is the things, how much of what she said to Reinhard is actually stuff that she believes, but a lot of that stuff was also things that she said within the confines of her own home with her father.
That's why I can take that stuff with 100% seriousness.
And either way, I feel like Reinhardt has a good enough head on his shoulders that he isn't worried about when people have their own agenda, as long as it's something that can run in parallel. You know?
Right, it's not something antagonistic towards him.
Right, exactly. Because it's like, sure, you want your own,
right.
you have
Oberstein
your own desires.
is the perfect example of that.
Exactly, yeah.
His goals and what have you are not fully realized to us and or probably Reinhardt. But they are close enough to in line with what he wants that he's like, oh, a dangerous dog, but he's on my leash?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that I think is important,
make it more dangerous,
Yeah. So when the two different Imperial guys that were with Braunschweig's group, right?
The two soldiers?
Yeah, the two soldiers.
Yeah,
and the one comes up and he was like, and we were really hoping that Reinhardt would get him on his side, and he tried to get him on his side, but he was like, no, I can't do that. I'm sorry, sir. And he's like, that's fine. You're totally free to go, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the ones that went to go to Reinhardt?
Yes.
Oh, at the very end. Gotcha. Yeah.
So with the first one, Reinhardt really wanted him on his side. With the other guy, Reinhardt was willing to accept him on his side, but because it was something where he kind of it seemed like he categorized him as one of those sort of mad dog people, right? In his own way, right?
Well, he's literally the one that ordered the group on his own authority to go and assassinate him. Which is something that's interesting here.
I don't know if the first guy mentioned it entirely, but basically saying, like, who was the one that... is it true that you suggested, Braunschweig, that I be assassinated? Okay, so he's talking about who suggested it, but he didn't actually mention that Fellner, the guy that comes in later, is the one that actually orchestrated it. Which is hilarious because this guy in the night of the previous day, basically, just earlier this day, was planning this guy's assassination.
Right,
gets thrashed, then realizes, I am hoping to serve under you as quickly as I could, and Reinhardt's like, I'm allergic to the
exactly
the bullshit.
Go be with Oberstein.
right,
because that's where basically the wild cards are.
I put them all in that
that's the kennel where the dogs go, right? And I'll sick you on people when I need to. But with the other guy, I get the feeling that if he had joined him, he would have been one of the crew.
Yeah, he would have been like, okay, I've got a great admiral for you to pair up with. Go join his
he would have essentially let him in the house, right?
Right.
You know? And I think that's an important.
He's not going to urinate over everything.
Right. Exactly. And I love that how they had that happen within those conversations, the dynamics and how they were written on all the different sides, right? It was just it was great. I absolutely loved it. It does so much to characterize Reinhardt and these new characters that they brought in, some to stay, some to go away, but it was just wonderful because a lot of the times when things like this happen, it can be handled in such a way so that respect is lost for one of the parties involved.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Either because but in Reinhardt's case with the first conversation, it was amiable on both ends and it was wonderful. Mm-hmm. On the second conversation, Reinhardt was aware enough of okay, so you're kind of sketch, but hey, you're saying the right things. You do have a good head on your shoulders, even if your loyalty is something that I can't necessarily rely on.
Right.
So all right, but you can only, you're joining me in this manner. Mm-hmm. And I love that.
One of the things that was brought up by Merkatz that I thought was rather interesting from the political side of things within the Empire, and something that Hildegard was kind of bringing up, is that he was saying that privilege is something that undermines your capacity to...
I want to actually get the exact quote of what he said.
Right.
But he basically denoted that you're
predisposed to think you're right.
Yeah, exactly. And it leads towards some kind of literal... privilege corrupts a man's soul. You instinctively justify yourself while blaming others.
Yeah.
And he said that he didn't even realize this himself till I dealt with lower ranked soldiers in the military.
And I think that's just so cool.
Well, that's a brilliant way to set him up as a character that we respect and honor.
Yep.
But what's interesting here is that applies to our protagonists.
Oh, yeah.
That applies to a massive portion of the main characters in this story.
Yep.
There is something that I think is rather sad, in that it's probably going to be lost when Merkatz eventually loses, as I hope he lives,
Yeah.
But I don't see it working out as well for him.
I don't either. Yeah.
And
he doesn't either, and that's why he said
goodbye to his family.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I feel like the biggest potential problem with a character like this being brought up in the story is that we're on the eve of revolution.
Right.
We're on the time where the people that were privileged might get ousted by the unprivileged.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the privileged go to war,
right,
and the unprivileged suffer and die,
right,
in the midst of this,
or rise,
or rise. Yeah. So that's a thing happening on the Empire side. But think about how this applies so much potentially to the Alliance side of things.
Oh yeah, I mean we've already seen it just fine. Like him saying it like this is wonderful because other than like in addition to how it makes us respect him as a character,
right,
it's something that we've been seeing this entire show, right? Yep. And because so much of the conflict hinges in a lot of cases on the not just incompetence, but the pride and ego of the other characters getting in the way, and then them losing because of it.
Right.
It's something that I am really excited because it basically it references that, yes, that is super important, and it's not some aura of stupid or whatever.
Right.
It's actual character flaws within the people, and the young generation hopefully will be able to beat that, but not necessarily, because we've already seen this happen with Reinhard in small doses, because while he is hyper-competent, in the thing with Bittenfeld, he went to blame Bittenfeld first, right? And granted, Bittenfeld did mess up. He did screw up, right? But he had to have that talk with Kierheis to be like, hey, just remember, you don't want to have, you don't want to make enemies on both sides, right? So this is something that is not just has been relevant, but is going to continue to be relevant. In the future.
And I think that you're mentioning the aura of stupidity thing is rather important here, because that was literally the reason why I was wanting to bring it up, was that in stories where you have hyper competent, super intelligent characters, one of the problems that can often happen in writing is in order to make them feel more intelligent, it's difficult to write lots of intelligent characters doing intelligent things, because eventually someone has to make a mistake, and you have to plot out why that mistake was intelligently made.
And oftentimes doing that can get so complicated in order to do it well that it kind of loses the tension of the story.
It loses the entertainment value.
Right, exactly.
So when characters like Braunschweig are shown to have potential aura of stupidity trope on them, well, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's actually that he's had so much privilege in his life, so much specific things where everything is justified as him being right, that he can't actually see himself making mistakes. Right. And I would say this is way more common than just people who are privileged.
Sure. Yeah.
This is just common of anyone that has that kind of delusion over their mind that they don't make mistakes.
Well, and I think one of the things that this does, because one of the biggest issues with aura of stupidity when it's being used, and that makes it really noticeable, is that the people aren't stupid except for when they're around the one person, right? That you're trying to build up as being smart. In this case, it's not that situation, right?
No.
They're stupid all the time, right? Like they're stupid all the time, and it's for character reasons, right?
Yes.
It's not just that they're grossly incompetent. They're grossly incompetent for a reason. And because it's consistent, then it becomes more commentary about the reasons why they are in this situation where they're arrogant, proud, all this other things that leads to their downfall, right? And then it can serve as that warning kind of for Reinhard, because Reinhard is
he's getting a lot of privileges.
He's getting a lot of privileges, and he's been earning them, but
he's also like,
don't rest on your laurels.
Well, he's also taking them. One of the things I thought was rather interesting verbiage-wise was the idea that he took the title of Supreme Commander from the Kaiser. I'm pretty certain they said exactly that. Obtaining.
Right.
Obtaining.
Yeah.
But obtaining it from the Kaiser. Yeah. So here's what, is naturally the case if you're in this kind of, specific,
Reinhard is going to eat this boy.
Well, basically, no, he just already he just declawed and took away the teeth of the Kaiser. The Kaiser gave, even if you'd say it is not as Reinhardt took it, the Kaiser gave the entire command of the military to Reinhardt.
Yeah.
I don't want Reinhardt to start making mistakes yet. But I will say to you that this is where he has to start making mistakes eventually, because now he has everything underneath his belt, which means that if there is incompetence in his military organization, some part of the blame goes to him.
Sure.
Some small part of it.
Yeah, because he's running the ship.
Because he's running the ship, which means that this is going to eat at him also as a person over the long course of time.
One of the other things, though, that they can do here, because they've established Reinhard to be so hyper-competent as far as military matters go.
Because he delegates well and all that stuff.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
He can mess up in other areas.
That's true.
Right? You don't have to just mess up in military matters, right? And that's something where it can kind of be this thing where, you absolutely stomp everyone on the battlefield. But is there something that you're missing? Little things like Kirhais having to give you that conversation of don't make enemies, on both sides, right?
Well, that's something he's done as a character consistently since a kid, is he makes enemies way too easily.
Right. Even though, there's the whole thing of like him knowing all the names of the people under him and things like that, right?
Sure. But that's probably because they're on his side.
Right.
But if they're not on his side, meaning they could be on his side eventually, he needs to get better at being a diplomat in addition to being a military leader.
And when are we going to see those cracks start to show?
I think it's going to be post-Civil War, when he needs to reform the empire.
Sure.
With kind of the Kaiser being like hey, do this thing. Lichtenlad's like, Reinhard, the Kaiser told you to do this thing. And Reinhard's like, okay. Sure.
Sure.
Like, how long is he going to do that, basically?
Right, because I feel like Reinhardt is going to end up falling eventually, but it's going to be a spectacular fall because it's going to be not in a spectacular fall in that it's going to be super dramatic necessarily. It could be, but that the
I don't think we're there yet.
Yeah,
I think we're so far from there yet that I almost can't follow you in the discussion at that point. So I know what you're talking about. But
bad things are going to happen.
But that's so far out.
I know.
That's so far out. Yeah. I think it's kind of the equivalent of the thing of like, yes, Kirhais will die eventually.
Sure.
It's going to suck. But that's not... There's no evidence of that coming anytime soon.
That'll be like 50, 60 episodes down the road.
Exactly. So in the here and now... we've got ourselves a really good opponent for Reinhardt.
Yep.
And I'm not really happy with the fact that this is going to happen this way. But in some ways, they're basically saying, yes, this is the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in, but the Alliance is basically going to be in the exact same situation in a different flavor of sorts very soon.
Well, like with the situation of them using the civilian ships as like defense to get away.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't fire in this situation. But potentially, if things get more desperate and things like that later, there can come a point where it's worth it. So
yeah. I do think though at this point though, unless Merkatz proves to be a foe that drags out the fight a lot more, I don't think there's going to be any doubt as to whether or not Reinhardt can win this. It's just a matter of how much time it's going to take.
Gotcha.
So I don't know necessarily, but I would say in some ways there's probably not going to be a lot of planets that are under Imperial space or what have you that are going to be sacrificed on the altar of the Civil War.
Yeah, that's probably more something that will end up happening when it goes back to fighting with the Alliance or with Rubinsky whenever he makes his move. But
again, I guess
way far in the future.
Yeah, that too. But we'll just have to wait and see then. But craziness, infighting, civil war, coup d'etats potentially, and all kinds of manner of madness. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and you can also talk with Jake about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Yep. Wrote a sci-fi novel. It's really cool. It's called Battle Lines. If you want to check it out, it's on Amazon. Link in the description down below. Go get it.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see it there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.